This one trick will help you understand almost any corner, in any car, at any circuit in the world. That trick is to know exactly where your peak steering angle occurs within the corner. Knowing this will let you learn tracks more quickly, unlock free lap time, and instantly identify early apexes, which, by the way, is one of the most common mistakes I see when I'm coaching students. So make sure to watch this whole video, because if you give me the next 6 minutes of your time, I will change how you think about every corner in sim racing. And to do that, we need to start by understanding exactly what the peak steering angle is. But don't worry, because it's as simple as it sounds. The peak steering angle is simply the point in the corner where you've increased the steering as much as you intend to, and the point that you're able to start unwinding from this angle. So why is the peak steering angle so important? And how can we use it to learn new tracks more quickly? To answer that, watch this corner from above. What is the biggest mistake that this driver is making? If you've been sim racing for a while, you'll know that the answer is that they're taking too early of an apex and killing their exit speed. But how did you know that? If we instead look at the onboard, is it still obvious to tell? What if we take a more marginal case? This is still an early apex, but suddenly it's much harder to be able to identify this. How about these three corners? Which, if any, are early apexes? Make a note of your answers, because we'll revisit these onboards later. This challenge of identifying early apexes is one of the reasons why learning new tracks takes so long. If you can't tell when you're apexing a corner too early, then you'll spend an hour practicing the track and only realise your mistake after having looked at the data after the session. So not only have you spent an hour practicing the wrong line, but now you also have to spend another hour practicing the right line. This is where the peak steering angle comes in. I've analysed a lot of telemetry, spent hours watching the onboards from the fastest drivers, and coached hundreds of students around countless circuits. But in 99% of normal corners, we can use the position of the peak steering angle to identify instantly if we are apexing the corner too early or not. And the way to do this can be summed up in just one sentence. As long as you're driving at the limit of grip, if you have to increase the steering angle after the apex, then you apexed the corner too early. So I will clarify what I mean by normal corners, and I will explain how you can properly take advantage of this trick to learn tracks more quickly. But first, I want to show you just how powerful a tool this can be. Watch back the same three onboards from earlier, this time not thinking about apex position, but instead thinking about the peak steering angle. If the peak steering angle occurred after the apex, then you know instantly that the driver took too early of an apex in this corner. Now update your answers and see how many you got right before you were thinking about the peak steering angle, and how many you got right after you were thinking about the peak steering angle. From above, and by looking at the data, it's clear to see when we're apexing too early, but the peak steering angle gives us a tool to identify this instantly in the moment while you're driving. So hopefully now you can see the potential of this technique, but we need to know how to take advantage of it to find lap time and learn corners more quickly, which starts by knowing the limitations of this technique, and there are two. The first is that this only works for normal corners, and by that I just mean corners that aren't connected corners, and corners that aren't double apex corners. We can still use the peak steering angle in connected corners to identify early apexes, but there will be some connected corners where we want to take an early apex in order to set ourselves up correctly for the next corner in the sequence. And in double apex corners, the first apex is definitionally an early apex, so we can't quite lean on the peak steering angle in the same way. But I already have a separate in-depth video on double apexes available on the channel. The other caveat to using the peak steering angle to identify early apexes is that we need to be driving the car on the limit of grip, because if you're not at the limit, you can kind of cheat and put the peak steering angle wherever you want to in the corner. But assuming you're in a normal corner, driving close to or at the limit of grip, you can use the peak steering angle to identify whether you're taking an early or a late apex. If you run some laps and you're constantly increasing the steering angle after the apex, then this alone should tell you that you need to take a later apex into the same corner. And the earlier in the corner the peak steering angle occurred, the later your apex position was. This lets you experiment with earlier and later apexes and get instant feedback on just how late or how early the apex was, based on the position of the peak steering angle. This knowledge alone should make it far easier for you to be able to understand corners at unfamiliar circuits, or even corners at circuits that you thought you knew well. Once you notice it, it's hard not to start thinking about the peak steering angle in every single corner. And actually, this video only scratches the surface of how powerful a tool the peak steering angle is, which is why I discuss it in detail in the throttle application section my online course, iRacing Fundamentals. The goal of the course is to help you understand for yourself how to extract lap time. So if you found this video helpful and want to improve your own driving, you can check out a free 7-day trial of the course via the link in the description.